All right, class. Class is in session. Grab your textbooks. Open to page 394. Today, we're talking meta. We're talking countering the meta. And we're just going to have a good time. No face cam in this video. I've nerded out. I'm just going pure analytics. I got some slides. We're going to read. We don't need my face in the way. If you guys are confused and don't know where you are, this is James. Welcome back to Make an Opening. If you guys are yet to be subscribed to the channel, make sure you do so. We are hot on the road to 800 subscribers. Leave a like as well. Share it to everybody participating in store showdowns, PQs, sectors, regionals, worlds, what have you. And yeah, today we're going to counter the meta. So if you turn to page 394, let me know if you get the reference, by the way. So we're just going to be talking about meta insights. We're going to be talking about the top 8 leaders that I think are going to be the top 8 leaders of the meta. We're going to be talking about how they act, what to do to beat them, what to look for when you're playing against them, and stuff like that. So the meta seems to be in a pretty healthy spot, carrying over from the set 3 meta. The top contenders of the meta got more tools, and new contenders are looking pretty competitive right out of the gate. Top end of the meta may look pretty similar for the first couple of weeks. Tons of rogue options could do work as well. And if you can handle a Jango matchup and have an answer for the Tech DJ package, your deck could easily see some great results in the early meta, because I do predict Jango and Han Spark of Rebellion are going to be the top 2 leaders represented in the meta. This weekend, we're going to be gathering a bunch of really exciting data. We have our first sector qualifier in Milan, Italy, which I believe is going to have well over 500 participants, I think is the word around the street of how many people have already signed up to participate. Also, the Battle of Atlanta, which is a 10K in Atlanta, Georgia, an event set up by the Bothan Network. There's going to be a few different events going on. I think they're going to be, it's either 128 or 256 players 6K on Saturday, and then there's a 128 player 2K on Sunday, and there's also a 2K like 3v3 team event as well. So we're going to get a lot of really good looks at the set 4 meta over this weekend. I'm very excited. I have the weekend off. I am going to be only watching live streams. Hopefully see you guys there in some of the chats. But yeah, let's continue. Today I'm going to go over what I believe to be the top 8 current meta contenders. If you aren't going to play the meta, you're going to need to know at least how to beat the meta, of course. So I'm going to go over some standard play lines, key cards to use interaction on, interesting sideboard options for, I say each leader. I don't think I did specific sideboard options for every leader. Whoopsie. So let me know what you will be playing in the set 4 meta. Is it on this list, or are you cooking up something special? I'm going to be starting from number 8 and working my way up to number 1. I'm going to have, the leader, some notes about the leader, and also what I expect the representation for that leader to be. Specifically, throughout all the big tournaments over the weekend, but, like out of the 500 in Milan, out of the 256 on Saturday in Atlanta, 128, I have it based on percentage values. And just to show you how I formatted, let's go ahead and get right into number 8. We have Kazuda Ziono, which is a brand new leader from Jump to Lightspeed. As you can see down in the bottom left corner, I predict it to have about a 3% play rate. It has a very linear space aggro playstyle, which obviously the deck is fast, and when piloted correctly, when it has the optimal starting hand and the right cards, that's pretty hard to outrace or deal with effectively. But trading units effectively and dealing with Kaz when he pilots pivots the game into your favor by a mile. Personally, I kind of see Kazuda as a more aggressive Anakin Skywalker deck, just because of the sole fact that, as you guys all know, or if you were any way, shape, or form in the know-how of the set 3 meta, Anakin Skywalker, as soon as you dealt with the leader itself, the deck got a whole lot less threatening and a lot easier to manage. With Kazuda, Stolen AT Hauler, Home 1 with They Hate That Ship, War Juggernaut, all these cards are kill on sight cards. because these cards, when piloted by Kazuda on, as early as turn 3, getting +3/+3 is quite scary. Also on cards like Stolen AT Hauler, Cartel Turncoat, the Spark of Rebellion Millennium Falcon, they all have negative abilities, or abilities that require you to do something to the unit, pay resources to keep them out and about, etc. But you can turn those abilities off, which makes those units just a whole lot better when played in Kazuda. So obviously some standard sideboard cards. It's a pilot, so Confiscate, Bamboozle, Disabling Fangfighter are some few good options for your sideboard. I'm not going to list a whole list and a bunch of sideboard options, but if requested, I could definitely go more in depth for sideboarding against specific decks in the meta. I don't think Kazuda is going to be all that important in the meta. I do think he'll be a player in it, but as you can see, a 3% play rate, I don't think you're going to see a whole lot of them. So that's just my personal take on that. With the leader being new as well, that number could easily be higher. I personally think it's going to be around this rate because we're so early on into the set 4 meta. I think people are more so going to be sticking with the tried and true leaders and gravitating more towards Jango and Han than much of the newer stuff. That's why I don't have him, upwards of 5 to 8%. Kind of have him around that 3%. With Kaz, you are most likely going to be seeing him paired with a red base, maybe Tarkin Town. We are in a Tarkin Town meta after all, but he doesn't really ping, so probably just like an effective red 30. I've also seen some pretty cool lists with Kaz Blue as well, but I think the Kaz Red list is going to be his best fit. Coming right after Kazuda, we have Cad Bane sliding in at number 7. I have him expected to be about a 4% play rate. Cad Bane from Shadows of the Galaxy. He is probably one of the best leaders from that set, especially now that he's gotten, so many good cards here lately in the last couple of sets. He is a tempo mid-range style of deck, and he has an excellent curve into the late game if he's able to make it there. Tarkin Town is typically what you see paired with Cad Bane. It helps stall early game, but Cad Bane does typically fall to faster paced aggro decks. For example, Kazuda that we just talked about, Leia possibly, we're talking Sabine, just decks that are overall faster. If Cad Bane isn't answered, as in the leader itself, Cad Bane does tend to lead the deck to wins on his own. You're swinging for 4 on a 2/8 body every turn. Also, with a Hotshot Blaster, which is seen a lot in Cad Bane decks, you are then effectively swinging with a 6/8 body every turn, and it only takes 4 or 5 swings of that to really end the game in your favor. My recommendation against Cad Bane is either winning fast or ramping past. He does typically have a harder time into ramp decks, because though he does have an excellent curve into the late game, if he doesn't get to the late game first, or he doesn't have as much late game options as a ramp style deck does, he tends to fall flat. Going into number 6, we have Boba Fett from Jump to Lightspeed. This is the second leader we're seeing from the new set. I'm predicting not a couple, because that would mean a few leaders from set 4 making it into the top 8, either from actually being good, or varying to also just being new leaders. But this leader does seem pretty good. It offers a brand new play style, really honing in on the really new specific mechanic being indirect damage. So I have him, as you can see in the bottom left corner, estimated to be about a 5% play rate over the weekend. Now, these decks are all about having a critical mass of indirect damage. It makes it very difficult to keep units alive and your base healthy. You can only assign so many damage points to your units before you have to start thinking about putting it on your base. You also have to be aware of key breakpoints. Boba Fett decks that I've seen don't typically run open fires, but daring raids are definitely out there. And when Boba Fett deploys as a upgrade, you get to deal 4 damage as you choose among any number of units. So you also have to keep in mind that whenever he deploys, even though he is a 6 resource deploy leader, he effectively comes with a miniature overwhelming barrage, which is pretty good. I've personally seen Boba Fett falter to units with large HP amounts, go wide decks, or removal. So if you are playing a deck with, you know, a more aggro approach like Sabine, I think you are tended to be favored. If you're playing decks with more removal, like some mid-rangey soft control shells, maybe Kira Green, or, you know, maybe even Piet, you may have a little bit of an advantage there, though Piet doesn't run a whole lot of removal from what I've been seeing, but that could be a meta call. Also, in your sideboard, you could sideboard in cards that maybe aren't as impactful to your deck's game plan, but they're cards with 7, 8, 9 HP that whenever you have them out on the field and Boba Fett tries to dump a bunch of indirect damage on you, you can just dump them onto this dummy unit and basically have it as a soaker for the indirect damage. If you apply too much indirect damage to your base, the deck has plenty of cards to get the last 5 it needs. You're looking at cards like Devastator, Planetary Bombardment, even units. You know, if you don't effectively deal with all the units on the board, Boba Fett is typically paired with yellow, so you could be seeing hotshot blasters, you could be seeing surprise strikes to squeeze in that extra bit of damage. So definitely managing indirect damage across your units and leaders. It's a tricky game to play. It is a very tight rope to walk, but if you have the right game plan and you go into the game prepared, Boba Fett isn't the scariest deck to go against, but it is very cool, and I expect him to see a lot of play. Also, look at his showcase. This showcase is really cool. Boba Fett tends to get a lot of the really cool showcases in this game, so cannot be mad at that. Coming in at number 5, we have my current favorite list that I've been piloting a lot of lately, Quinlan Vos. I also have this guy estimated at about a 5% play rate as well. Quinlan Vos was a top meta contender from the Twilight of the Republic meta. He gets some great new cards, and those great new cards match the theme. Cards like the new Ahsoka unit. We get cards like Jam Communications. Cards that add into the hand hate and hand disruption theme that made Quinlan so prevalent in the last meta that we saw. He is one of the most fair leaders in the game with the winning shot against any deck if piloted correctly. What I mean by that is that he doesn't do anything extremely like broken. He's not able to spam triple dark raid into devastators or ruthless raiders. He's not able to ECL out Wrecker. He's not able to DJ Tech blow up one of your resources to set you back. But his tempo is pretty fair. I'd say one of the more unfair things this leader does do is the force throws with the amount of force enabling units that the deck can run. Typically, you're running the Ahsoka unit, Quinlan Vos as a leader himself. Me personally, I've started testing with Grogu in the main deck because he doesn't die to turn 1 Tarkin Town decks, and he is another force enabler for early force throws. So that can be seen as one of the more unfair things he does. But honestly, against an open field, I feel like Quinlan Vos has like a good, you know, slightly better than 50-50 matchup into almost any deck in the meta. The only deck I feel like he has more issues with than any would be Jango, but I feel like his Jango matchup is right at 50-50, to the point where you'd probably want to run some Jango specific cards in the main deck, and then if you're not playing Jango, you just resource them and then side them out for games 2 and 3. So doesn't win through blowouts. This basically also goes back to him being one of the more fair leaders in the game. You are either squeaking out wins against unbalanced matchups, or you are getting smoked and you are shuffling up by turn 5, turn 6 and going next because there's no way you can come back from it. Card draw and units with 5 or more HP are big hills for the deck to climb. With Quinlan, you know, he is a ping style deck. You get to deal the damage to an enemy unit that costs the same as the unit you play whenever he's on his leader side or when deployed. it's the same as or less. So he is a ping style deck. 1 ping plus Tarkin Town is 4 damage. And a lot of the units in the deck are anywhere from like 2 to 4 damage units. The only exceptions being Plo Koon with Coordinate and cards like Han Solo and Mace Windu on the high end having 6 power. There's really not a whole lot of physical strength in this deck, but there are cards like Surprise Strike and Hotshot Blaster that find their way into the list to kind of help with that. But honestly, chunkier units that force Quinlan to trade his own units into them and just card draw. That way his hand hate isn't super egregious against you are some of the best ways to counter him. Bringing up the top 4, we have Admiral Piet. This will be the last set 4 leader I talk about. He is the best new leader from Jump to Lightspeed, in my opinion. He gets to cheat out some of the strongest cards that have ever been printed in the game, those being capital ships. He basically, his playline, you will ramp and then drop bomb after bomb starting on turn 4. I estimate him as well to have about 6% play rate. So, you know, just slightly higher than Quinlan and Boba, but typically only drops 1 unit at a time. So removal and bounce cards are really great options to counter him. Cards like Waylay, you know, no good to me dead as, you know, a form of removal. It's exhausting him. Frozen and Carbonite, Power of the Dark Side if he only has the 1 unit. Vanquish, Rivals Fall, stuff like that. Also, if you're able to use some hand hate cards and rip out his resupply carriers, super laser technicians to stop him from ramping, that really slows down his progress of dropping Avengers and Annihilators. Also, hand hate to rip away his overwhelming barrages and turbo laser salvos are really good as well, because if you are building up a board presence, he drops 1 big ship. The next turn, he is going to want to use one of these options to effectively board wipe you to set you back into the Stone Ages. Typically, Piet is ran with blue, so also if you make it to the 8 resource turn, which will come a lot sooner for him than it will for you, he will drop a super laser blast on you, typically 1 or 2 in the main deck, and that's also a little hard to come back from as well. I think Piet kind of just plays the game in a very simple, straightforward way. I think anybody could pick up the game and pilot him. It's just ramp, 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 big ship, big ship, big ship. I think he's really strong. That's why I have him in top 4. I could also see him being paired really well with red. I don't personally like the mono green and the green yellow pairings for Piet. I don't think those are going to be the strongest. I think blue will be the strongest. Going into the top 3, be prepared to see some familiar faces, starting with Sabine Wren, with the play rate jumping up to about an 8% play rate. Sabine Wren is the best aggro leader in the game. It's been this way since the beginning of time, and with great new rebel cards, it makes it seem like she's going to remain the head honcho of aggro. You get cards like Darksaber, you get to ECL out Wrecker, you have this brand new Chewie pilot to play on your turn 1 ships like Green Squadron A-Wing. You have so many really strong options. I just think Sabine Wren is going to be 3rd and not as high as number 2 or number 1, because Sabine honestly does have a little bit of a tougher time against the top 2 meta options. But against the general field, she's really good. She's always been good. You know, super easy play patterns as well. You know, you're going face, no matter what the matchup is, you are the aggressor. You're never worried about trading. You're just going base, base, base. And if you see a Sabine Wren sit across from you, you must have a plan. There are some really good options for dealing with Sabine, because obviously she only has 5 HP. So when she does deploy, even though she comes out on turn 3, she's very easy to deal with. Having just that 5 HP, you're able to use the exact same cards you would use against a tech or a DJ. So if you're teching against Han Solo, you're already sort of teching against Sabine Wren. As long as you can deal with the Sabine Wren leader, it does make the deck a little bit easier to play against, but still a very difficult aggro matchup to survive against. Number 2, we have Han Solo from Spark of Rebellion, the very first set. He took set 3 meta by storm with the suspension of Boba Fett from the Spark of Rebellion set, and he has a nasty combo. I have him sitting at about a 14% play rate, and that is mainly due to the Tech DJ combo. Also, he is the king of set 3, so I do expect him to still be very high up there in terms of play rate. I see some Han Solo players switching to Jango just because I feel like it's the strongest deck, and a lot of people that have been piloting Han are only doing so because it was the strongest deck. So I see some of his meta share pivoting over to Jango because the large community consensus is that Jango got so much help. Jango got too much help. He is now the strongest. I think Han Solo is going to take a slight backseat, but that does not mean you do not tech for this guy. If you do not have the right answers, it is an auto lose when you sit across the table from a good Han Solo player. If you can't answer the Tech DJ combo, you will have a hard time competing. Tech and DJ, just like Sabine, both have 5 health. There are plenty of removal options either for your main or side decks. That is the main thing you have to think about when playing into Han. Other than that, typically you're seeing Han Solo paired with yellow, so double yellow deck. You're gonna have to worry about Cunning. You're gonna have to worry about Bodhi Rooks. You're gonna have to worry about Cantina Bouncers. It's a very annoying deck to play into. It's fast. It rips cards out of your hand. You just have to be ready for it. We've had plenty of sets to analyze this specific deck and figure out the ins and outs and what makes it tick. Obviously, it's still at the top for a reason, but it is no longer number 1. So make sure you're teching for Han Solo. If your deck does not have an answer for Tech and DJ, and you sit across the table when in your testing and you know you can never deal with that combo, you always get set back a resource, you should not take that deck unless you plan on dodging Han, but I feel like that's going to be kind of hard to do. Lastly, in our number 1 meta slot, we have Jango Fett, and I estimate him to be at a whopping 20% play rate. He picked up the Boba Red mantle, and he has yet to look back. He probably got the most help from the Jump to Lightspeed set out of all previous meta contenders, making him top Han Spark of Rebellion as top dog. And honestly, I think Hand Hate and Interaction are really great answers into Jango. You either remove his triple dark raids or you answer them effectively either by exhausting the units, taking them from him via Commandeer, which is a brand new card from the set. Just stalling in general, making sure that they die so they don't go back to his hand. All in all, even if you do have answers to Jango, I feel like he's number 1 because even if you do have the right answers, you only have so many answers. Jango Fett does just high roll into free wins by triple dark rating out a Devastator on back-to-back turns. And then it's just, it's kind of GG at that point. What are you going to do? If you have the right answers at the right moments, I think Jango is still beatable. I think there is plenty of decks out there that have good play lines into him, but decks that do have good play lines into him typically also falter to Han Solo or other top meta decks. One in particular that I was working on at the beginning of the set 4 meta, Gar Saxon yellow, just with all the shields, it makes it very difficult for Jango to tap down and exhaust your units when damaging them with pings, because this guy's all about ping, 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 exhaust, exhaust, exhaust. But even if you do master the Jango matchup playing Gar Saxon, which again, even into a deck like Gar Saxon, you will still just randomly get free wins as Jango. Gar Saxon has a horrendous time into decks like Han Solo. So that's why I think Jango Fett's going to be top dog. I expect him to be a 20% play rate, and I do expect him to win one of the big 3 tournaments that we have this weekend, either Milan or the Saturday or the Sunday events over in Atlanta. I do expect Jango Fett to pick up at least one of the crowns. I do expect Jango Fett to actually win 2 of them. It doesn't really matter which 2. I do expect Jango to win 2, and either Han or one of the other top 8 lists winning a 3rd one. But I think Jango Fett could easily win 2 of the big events this weekend. And there we have it, guys. That was my Counter the Meta video. James, make an opening. That's what I think about the meta currently. That's what I think the meta is going to shape out to be, and that's what I think you could do to fight against it. Let me know what you thought of the video downstairs in the comments section. Let me know if you're going to be playing any of these leaders, if you're going to be playing something I didn't mention, what your plans are to counter the meta. All that downstairs below in the comment section. Let's start a discourse. Also, do not forget, like, comment, subscribe as well. We're hot on the road to 800 subscribers. And if you know anybody, friend, family member that is, looking to compete competitively, maybe even this weekend at Milan or Atlanta, shoot them this video. See if it helps them. I don't know. It might. Who knows? But anyway, it's been your boy James with Make an Opening. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.